G'day everyone, Darcy here. Steve up above me. I think he's above for you as well. Pleasure to meet you here. We are diving into today the top 5 mistakes that we see sales teams making all around the world. This isn't just limited to Australia or US or UK. This is the clients that we're seeing or working with all around the world. When it comes to the KPIs and the setting of them, Steve, and the setting of your KPIs towards a goal, towards a success that you're looking to achieve. So often, Steve, we see with KPIs that teams are often, well, actually, I won't go too deep into it because I know I'm about to get into some of the problems that we see. But when KPIs are aligned, Steve, some pretty amazing things can happen towards a goal.
Yeah, 100%. And it's often shown up as like glass ceilings in how you're scaling a company.
Yes.
We see teams get to a certain level and they sort of bounce off the top. That can be one way that this is showing up. As you can see here, it's restricting sales growth. The other way you can see it is very much that roller coaster effect. Sales just keep going up and down and up and down and up and down. So if that's happening in your business, you're probably going to take a lot away from this short video on the top 5 KPI mistakes.
Let's rip in.
Yeah, let's do it. So, summary, to show you where we're heading, these are the top 5 big problems. These are the problems that we see all the time that are holding you back from sales growth. Number 1 is that leaders, Das, are required for the motivation.
Yeah, we'll dive into this soon, but it's one of the biggest ones that we see. It's why we put it as number 1. It's the biggest headache for sales leaders all around the world, is that they're the one who has to continue to do the driving and the motivating, etc., when they've ideally hired a team to be able to do that for themselves.
100%. And number 2 is the winging it sales approach. So this might resonate if you are watching this as a seller. We've all done it. You might have some must-win deals, some big wins, some big average sale deals, and we feel like our next approach is a bit like a throw it and see approach, see what sticks. And unfortunately, as we're going to dive into in this video, thus we've noticed it can cause a lot of pain when it comes to the biggest deals in people's pipelines. Number 3, Das.
Number 3, assets and tools not getting used. Sales teams invest in a ton of softwares, a ton of subscriptions. A lot of things are at the buying team, the selling team's ability to use. They're sitting right there at their fingertips, but actually putting it into reality and using those tools to the extent that they could be often falls short, particularly when we're running into sales growth problems.
Yeah, so that could be CRM, that could be video tools, that could even be assets that the marketing team has generated over sometimes years, and they're just sitting there at your disposal, but they're not getting used.
The irony with those, Steve, I don't want to spoil it too much here, but the irony with that is often it's the assets that the sales teams actually asked for in the past as well. They finally receive them and nothing ever actually gets put in.
100%.
Yep.
Number 4, we call them loose calendars and loose time management. So this shows up when you start, exploring an ideal sales week or even an ideal sales day with the team. And we quickly uncover with heaps of teams around the world that the calendar is very loose. There's heaps of white space in the calendar. There's no real structure or system around how to be effective and efficient at work. And so that can mean heaps of money lost in opportunity cost, or spending heaps of time with buyers that we're never going to buy. And not having ways to identify that early can cost businesses so much. And often means that their forecasts for the month are left short. They thought that deal was going to close, too loose, it's gone away.
Nice. Number 5 team is sales leaders and sales teams taking action based on gut feeling alone. Taking action based on gut feeling is sometimes what makes a great sales leader great. They have this intuitive knowledge of how things are going to go. But if it's the only thing that we base our decision making on, we're stuffed. Of course, we'd love the other side of that, which is being able to make decisions based on the data and what the data is telling. Bit of a boring one, bit of a rational one to finish off on, Steve, but it's good. Get into it.
Good one. Go for it.
I was going to let you talk about yourself.
Team. Number 1 rule of selling: don't talk about yourself. So
there you go. That's fair call. Number one person here that doesn't want to talk about himself is Steve Claydon. Now, Steve, I've enjoyed working with you, Steve, we've been working together the last 5 to 6 years. Overall, over a decade in the industry, working with tens of thousands of sales professionals all over the world, helping them add $2.2 billion in fresh sales growth. And I reckon that number needs to be updated these days, Steve. That's I think going a little bit low. Specializes in sales strategy and gamification, and specializes in gamification as a way of driving strategy. For those that don't know, gamification is a big offering of ours that actually helps drive and implement everything we're going to talk about today. So your zone of genius, Steve.
Love it. Thanks for that, mate. I dodged the bullet there. But joined by Das, again, good mate, co-founder of the Outbound Game. But yeah, like Das has mentioned, been collaborating for 5 or 6 years now. I've known Das for a number of years, where his genius comes in is all to do with the background of psychology. So has very much dedicated himself to learning professionally and on his own accord in the space of psychology. And where he's decided to apply that is in specifically leader psychology, motivational psychology, and then of course the actual side of sales, which is buying and sales, seller psychology, which is smart. He's a smart dude. He's applied it to a very profitable space where people have psychology degrees and they don't do anything with them.
Yes, plenty of that going on. That's a conversation for another day.
And also where the backstory is of where we got into gamification. Darcy, was the inventor of the sales game, really the guy to pioneer and take traditional textbook learning and apply it to the real world. Of course, that's a human behavior spectacle. And that's where we got started in gamification. And now 3 years later, specifically in the gamification of activity and meaningful action, which is cool. So let's dive into us. Let's give some practical value here, diving into problem number one. Of course, we're talking about what I'm calling the leadership rant. This idea that leaders are required to drive action and motivation. And when they aren't there, present and active, activities go backwards.
This is one of the biggest complaints we see, Steve, from sales leaders. Will call us and say, guys, it's awesome if we're working with the team, numbers are up. If them as the sales leader is there, numbers are up. But they notice that if they ever take a holiday with their family for 2 or 3 days over a long weekend to extend it, they get back to work on the Monday after not really being there the week before, and the numbers have completely slipped and dropped. Sorry, I've stolen your microphone there. I get passionate about this one because we see it so often, and I know how much it actually impacts the life and day-to-day life of sales leaders. Going, yeah, this is all good for now, but the dirty little secret is when I'm not here, none of this will actually happen.
Yeah, it's a big problem, right? Like it eventually leads to burnout, not only for you as the leader, but it can also start to feel like a bit of a chore culturally in the business when it comes to hitting KPIs. And so leaders turn into the rah-rah ranter. Not many leaders that we've spoken to, Das, actually enjoy that part of the role. They want to be coaches. They want to innovate, want to get creative. So yeah, we found a bit of a solution to this. So that's what we don't want. We don't actually want the leadership rant. But Das, where does it start? Like big part of us putting together this little mini masterclass was us asking the question, well, where does it start to actually turn this problem around?
Yeah. The key is understanding what actually drives your team. What are they into? What motivates them? What's important to them? So many sales leaders want something from their team. They want them to take their own activities to a new level. But as a result of that, you've got to put in whatever it is you want to get out. So sales leaders often say, oh, well, yeah, but we're giving them commissions. We're giving them extra pay. Question we often ask is, do you know what they're spending their pay on? Do you know what's important to them? And some sales leaders will say, oh, I assume they're saving for a house. I assume, they've got a family to pay for. Do you know all of this? To which we ask the question, great, do you know why they want a house? What's even important to them about that? And understanding what is actually personally driving the sales team creates almost that bridge of connection, Steve, that's required, that so often is severed between sales leader and sales team member, largely because the sales team member sees the leader as someone who just tells them what to do. But via rant, which doesn't work, unfortunately.
Yeah, 100%. And so that's the big question to ask yourself and your team is what motivates them on a personal level. Obviously, through gamification, you get to figure this out quite quickly, something like a reward store. But whether you use a platform like this or any other rewards, program, it's important to ask the question, like what actually is driving the team on an individual level. It's the only way you're going to get self-motivation, right?
Good call.
Love it.
Second one, Steve.
Problem number two, obviously we mentioned at the start, is this winging it approach. So that could look like skipping or cutting steps of the sales process, or it could just be a bit of I'm just going to have a crack at this nurture approach and see what happens, or I'm going to have a crack at this prospecting approach and see what happens. But really hasn't been a lot of thought put in behind it. That's what we call winging it. And it can really hurt the consistency.
Nice. It's almost like we say, You've got a patient in a hospital, you grab a handful of Panadol, throw it at their mouth, however much goes in is the right amount that was meant to give them, or whatever the pill. Like if we took that approach to the most important things in our lives, we'd all be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. 100%.
Whereas when it comes to sales and running a business, this winging approach, this lackadaisical approach says, near enough is good enough. Whatever's close to the strategy will be close enough. And it's simply not the case. If we have that lackadaisical approach, then we've got to get the results that reflect that.
100%. And this, as we mentioned here, this becomes more dangerous the bigger the deal size. And of course, you don't get any prizes for coming second. And when you're talking about bigger deals, actually having a strategy behind your approach can be the difference between winning and losing that particular contract or that that particular account. So it can be really dangerous. So instead, Darcy found that focusing on the lead measures more than the lag measures and what we call high impact activities made a world of difference.
Yes. So for those that don't know, just basic definition here, lead measure is anything that's in your control that you can decide whether you want to do more of or less of, that leads to the result at the end of the day. Classic example is shooting a basketball. I have control over how hard I flick my wrist, over how high I jump when I shoot the ball, up to around about 20 centimeters high these days. I have control over whether or not I dip my knees and bend my knees when I let go of the ball, etc. Once I let go of the ball, those are all the lead measures. Once I let go of the ball, the lag measure is whether or not the ball actually goes in the hole or not. Because once I let go of the ball, I actually have zero control over where it goes. All I had control of was the lead measures that led up to that moment at which the ball left my fingertip. For salespeople, this is how we can control how many times we get on the phone. We can control how many times we ask for the business. We can control how many social media posts that we do. We can control all of these things. They're all in our control. The lag measure is how much the business makes at the end of the day. Because believe it or not, we actually have zero control over whether or not our buyer gives us money. Do we have influence over it? 100% yes. Do we have control over them putting their hand in their own wallet and giving us their money or their credit card, etc.? No, that's always in their control. That's the lag measure. So we can shoot basketball, but we can't decide whether or not it actually physically scored, okay? So key to seeing more of this come to life as a sales team and with a sales leader is drive through your top 5 high impact activities. Decide on what those lead measures are that are going to have the biggest impact on sales growth at the end of the day. Steve, how often have we seen sales leaders, sales teams driving activity that's either haphazard at best or they've created lead measures that actually aren't the most high impact things that they could be doing?
Yeah.
So outbound calls is a big one, but I guarantee for a lot of sales teams, outbound calls are probably just a ticket to the dance. There's probably some much more creative strategy and some creative outbound and inbound strategies that if they were implemented would have a huge difference on the results at the end of the day.
100%. And a lot of this is actually defining these activities in a more focused area or high impact area. So we've discovered, outbound calls, like you're saying, Das, ticket to the dance, but where you can add more value to that particular activity is you ask yourself the who. So what type of people are we going to be making outbound calls to? Is there a title that we're going after in terms of the decision-making unit? Or it could be the type of people, strategic partners or the like, or the where, which is at what stage of the sales process. So you might notice that you're really lagging on post-proposal follow-up calls. That's the where. You might want to focus in on a particular area of the sales process. And this is what ultimately gives sellers on your team confidence because they can know where to focus for the day or the week or the month. But it also means that it's getting really defined and we know that it's not just ticket to the dance activity.
Good one.
That's kind of our definition around high impact. So it can be those things that are a little bit more uncomfortable, those behavior change things that can make a big difference. The key here, though, is that they're within their control and you want to gain buy-in here. So a big part of our approach is rewarding with carrot rather than ranting with stick and getting the team to actually buy into these activities can make a world of difference too. Instead of just giving your team KPIs, call a meeting and say, hey, if we could just do 5 activities that are within our control that would drive massive results, what would they be? And get the team to buy into this process. That can make a world of difference.
Good. I like it. Problem 14.
Problem 3.
Problem 3. I'm excited.
Mattress money.
Mattress money. I want to take this one, Steve. I like the heading you came up with here for. So mattress money team is this idea of valuable tools and assets. We mentioned this earlier, where there's these tools and assets that have been created for the sales team or invested in for the sales team, often when they were the one who asked for them to be created or invested in, and they actually aren't putting them to use in the business at all. They're just going complete to waste. Examples of this are your CRM. Steve, how many teams do we work with where the sales leader says, here, we pay $1,200, $1,500, $1,800 a month, $2,500 a month for this CRM. And people don't even put the notes in when we need them to. If we don't have the data, then what's the point of making the investment? But if you took it away from the sales team, they'd say, hey, where's our CRM? We need a CRM. So video tools, things like Vidyard and Loom and all of, software like this is great stuff. Marketing tools and assets, case studies and testimonials that the marketing team has gone and created for the sales team. Now that they've got them to plug the hole in the piping of their pipeline, they never actually use them. Okay. What we like to say here is that means you have a ton of cash sitting underneath the mattress. Do you want to speak a bit more to what that actually means, Steve, when you say mattress money and cash sitting underneath the mattress?
Yeah, of course. Like when we consult with and partner with companies all around the world, at the end of the day, the reason they're engaging us is they're like, we got some targets to hit and we need to generate some more revenue, profit through the business. Great. We're in on that. Sometimes what's missing, or where they can get massive immediate gains, is just to lift up the edge of the mattress, which is in their bedroom.
Yes.
Whoa, there's a lot of money under here. And
Yeah.
that's what we see all the time. These assets that have been invested in, created, like, there, just sitting there under the mattress, that could be turned into real profit gains quite quickly. Big gap though is that desire or focus to implement them is always where it falls over.
Yes. Yeah.
So
It'd be a big one.
focusing in on that, even being some of your, top 5 high impact activities, like making it a habit of sharing a video with your high value proposals, or getting the habit of sharing case studies and testimonials during your proposal phase or discovery phase. That could make a massive difference to conversion rates. And it's just sitting there ready to go, like right now. So it's good.
Love it. Ripper. Number 4, Steve. Oh, sorry. Number 3. Gee, I'm jumping ahead.
You are ahead of the game, my friend. So the key outcome here is, like we just spoke about, utilize what you've got. Collaborate with marketing, centralize all your assets and tools. But this is the key: reward your team for using the asset that will be high impact for the client. That's the secret sauce.
And a lot of time that's the case, Steve, because the use of these new assets or the use of these new tools, it doesn't happen because the team are uncomfortable with them, or they're uncertain about them, or they're foreign to the team. And so if there's nothing really in it for the team to move past that courage moment of using the platform, using the tool, using the whatever has been created, using the resource, then it's going to be actually hard to get them motivated enough to get over that hill. So if you understand that there's something in it for you here, team, to do it, put a bit of a blitz on, turn it into a competition, whatever it may be. We get into a bit more of that later on, but this is the things at your disposal. That happen.
100%.
Now we're up to problem 14. This is good. We're on track. Now, looking at problem 2 here, of course, loose calendars. Do you have a lot of white space in your calendar, and is time management and productivity a loose topic of conversation within your business? Steve, this is your jam, understanding the power of opportunity cost. If you could explain this to the audience here, this is so powerful to understand. I take a seat back here, mate. You're the master.
Well, the numbers on this is, can be quite staggering when you start to do some very simple divisions and understand what the value of time looks like. Every team we work with, even ourselves, can struggle with procrastination and not prioritizing the things that actually matter. And the reason being is we've got loose calendars. Loose calendars meaning that you've got lots of white space, lots of flexibility, not a lot of planning or preparation in what an ideal sales week or an ideal sales day looks like. So then it's really easy to go for a big old scroll on LinkedIn, classic, Parkinson's law in terms of time expands to fill time allocated. So we cram it all at the last minute. So instead, what we can do to massively compress the value of our time is 2 things. Number 1, understand the value of it. So the way to do that is you just take your sales month that you want to hit, record month, divide it by 168, and that'll give you your productive hours per month to generate that result.
And that's based off 8 hours per day average working, multiplied by 21 average working days in a month. 21 times 8 is 100.
Perfect. Exactly. And then you just divide that number by the hours of income producing team members you've got on your team.
The total, the number of, not the hours of.
Yeah. So once you get that record month or sales target, divide by 168.
Yes.
Divide that number by the number of sales reps.
Yes.
And you're going to get an individual hourly opportunity cost. Once you start knowing that number is normally in thousands,
yes,
realize those hours are incredibly valuable.
Yes. Most sales teams we work with, Steve, in the range we play at, come to learn that their individual hourly opportunity cost, not even the team, individual hourly opportunity cost is somewhere between $1,000 and $4,000 per hour of lost literal revenue in time every moment they spend an hour doing nothing or wasting time or procrastinating.
Yeah. 100%. And so once you understand that number, you can start to leverage that number. And the way we've found that to work incredibly well is by compressing time. And compressing time is setting up full day sales blitz where you set an activity number that could be a 5 times multiple on what they would normally do in a day easily. And you'll notice when you put a bit of a carrot behind it, you make it fun and you compress that time, people often are blown away with what is actually possible for themselves. Yes. It could be a full day, could be a 2 hour, could be what we call a power hour, which is where an hour a week, the whole team have a compressed hour of time to do a particular high impact activity. Amazing for productivity growth. And so this is where you can get huge gains in a short amount of time and realize that you're getting a major multiple on your hourly opportunity cost. So nice. Really fun, really powerful.
I like it. So do's and don'ts here, Steve.
Yeah. So like we just said, plan out your ideal sales week. That's step number 1. If you could have an ideal Monday through Friday, what days are you doing in office meetings? What days are you innovating? What days are you face-to-face discovery, prospecting, closing? What days are you in office, whatever it may be. You need to start
Mm.
planning out what an ideal sales week looks like so you can start to control your time.
These blitzes, Steve, in our experience of running blitzes with teams, is one of those ones where you almost have to experience it to realize the power of it. But if you hear about it, you're like, yeah, I can see how that would work. And then actually implementing one for your team when you get to the end of the day of a blitz and the whole team has done 7 to 8 times more sales activities in one day than they've done previously in a whole week or even a month.
Yeah.
It's a pretty empowering feeling and sets up the next 90 days so well. You know, we ran a few blitzes. One blitz we ran with a company, Steve, correct me if I'm a bit off on the numbers here, but I remember they did about 1,400 activities in 90 days. We ran a 2-day blitz and they did 1,290 activities in just those 2 days, just by setting up a strong blitz. Worked with a team who had previously done 0 personalized videos, but knew it was a strategy they wanted to be implementing more of, because they knew it was a high impact activity that would actually make a difference. So they'd never done one, and they then went on to send 125, was it, in a day?
Yeah, that's it.
Out to their market as a way of driving those sales results. It's pretty unreal when you think about the power of what's possible in a blitz to compress time.
Yeah, it is. It's quite amazing what can happen. So yeah, it's all about compressing time and then pointing those activities at a particular target can make a ridiculous impact in the business.
Nice.
Which leads us to the final problem 5, Das, which is, of course, what we call the gut feel economy.
Yes. Yeah. Please don't get us wrong. We are big fans of sales leaders who make decisions on gut feel. Some of the best coaches we've ever known around in any industry, whether it's sports, business, etc., they make gut feel decisions. There's something that they sense. We're like, I got to back my intuition. But if we only ever made decisions with our gut feel or our intuition, we'd be in a lot of trouble. We'd find ourselves in some very precarious situations, I would say. So it's sort of, 1/3 of your decision making is your gut. Ultimately, you want to look at, how do I make decisions combining my gut feel with also the data that informs it. And without that, all you're ever doing is flying blind on what the best decisions are to make and in which direction you should head. Sales data, if you've tracked it well enough and you have a way of having the team wanting to drive more of the data themselves, as opposed to that point 1 where the leader has to give a bit of a rant to tell people to enter the data, the team is self-driven to enter it. It is one of the most powerful assets that you can have in your business, and one of the most powerful assets that you can have over your competition, who, if you put the effort into this, chances are they're not doing it either, or they're not doing it from their end at all, okay? Your results will go up and down with the team's emotions if you don't make decisions using data. We say this, Steve, how often have we heard from sales leaders as well? They'll say all the time, oh yeah, it's great, Johnny's awesome one day, kicking goals, and then the next day he loses a deal, and then he's down in the dumps for the next 2 or 3 days, and it takes a while to actually get him back. And so his results go like this overall. Or you hear from hear from the leader, yeah, the team were great in April, but come May, they were burned out. June, they couldn't have cared. It wasn't until July that they were revving up again, and away we went. Might have had something to do with the new financial year. And again, might have. We don't know, because we don't have the data to tell. You know what I mean? So this data informs this decision to almost, if you want to grow and scale, if you don't have data, you're not growing and scaling. Period. We'll stop you right there.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the big aha moment that a lot of sales teams and businesses get to. If you ask this question honestly about your own business, does your sales team really care about the data? You find a lot of answers in the answer to that question. Like, we've worked with tens of thousands of salespeople around the world over the last decade. And you count the number of them that actually take the time to dive into their sales CRM reporting and dive into the data. You'd say data's like virtually non-existent, right?
Yeah.
And it's because they don't have a reason to yet. And this is the big difference. When you get a team that actually cares about the data and what the inputs look like to lead to the outputs, the lead versus lag measures, it is phenomenal behavioral change, which makes perfect sense.
Interesting point here, Steve. To care about the data is to care about the health of the company overall.
Yeah.
To not care about it is almost, I'm here as a selfish salesperson just to get my own. But to care about the data is to care about, this is building the asset of the data within this company so that it has longevity moving forward. It's caring about data is caring about the health. It really is.
100%.
Nice.
So flowing on from the last answer, if you have those ideal weeks planned out and you create internal calendar invites to run power hours, team blitzes, and sprints, and the team are rewarded with in-game coins, for example, that translate into real-world rewards and prizes for themselves, and they have a goal to send 5 in a particular blitz, all of a sudden they're now caring about the data. They're now caring about the inputs. They're now caring about, like you just mentioned, the flow-on effect to the overall health of the business. And so it's a really key part that often a lot of teams have missed. They just haven't really drilled down into that level of depth, but we've made it really simple. So to make this whole process easy, Das, we've got a couple of offers for you to get some clarity around all of these problems. If it's resonated with you, you'll probably want to take one of these 2 steps to get you started on turning those problems around. Das, first one being
as a minimum team,
planner.
The sales target planner team, as a minimum, download this for free. It's going to be sitting here on the page here for you. You can have this at your disposal within a few clicks. Essentially, team, what we get to be able to do is put in some key numbers. Those green areas that you see there allow us to put in some key numbers about your business. Really easy and answerable questions, I would say, Steve. Nothing too over the top. Pretty much you could guess what those are pretty much off the top of your head. As a result of that, as a result of entering those numbers, we've algorithmically geared the spreadsheet for you to let you know what, and you'll see back down below there, the KPI activity planner, what your KPIs should be in order to hit your goal moving forward for the next, what would it be, Steve? For the next month, really, ultimately. You look at and this is powerful stuff, Steve. This is all based on our experience over, collectively over 2 decades of working with sales teams all over the world, understanding what are the KPI lead measures that are required for them to be able to hit their goal has been built directly into this spreadsheet. So you don't even have to question. You just put in your numbers and the answer will be given to you clear.
Great. We've also given you some suggestions down there as well of what are some of those high impact activities that other teams, B2B sales teams, are getting a lot of value out of. That'll get some projected numbers around that too, as well, to give you some insight areas of where you could leverage this. Otherwise, you could take the essence of each of those suggested ideas and come up with your own actions that are similar in impact. For example, we're big fans of video stuff like this. But video might not suit your business model, but you can ask yourself, okay, what would be a similar impact activity to sending a video to our database? Brainstorm it, come up with some ideas, but this is going to give you all the numbers at a few clicks.
Nice. Second option, team, is go ahead and invest in a strategy session with a Bravo team member, either Steve, myself, or another member of the team. And we're actually going to spend 60 minutes with you. The first thing that we'll do is actually go through that KPI planner together and then work on an action plan moving forward in order to see those KPIs become a reality. For that one, $497, usually charge out at about $1,000 an hour per time when you average it out. But we thought for those people wanting to jump into the strategy session and use the KPI planner to its fullest extent, special offer of $497 for the 60 minutes together to set you guys up for a solid month in sales ahead and beyond. Once you know how to use the KPI planner, the world's your oyster.
Love it. So go ahead and do that. Either download the KPI planner or book in a strategy session with us and just jump on the Calendly down below, pick a time that's suitable and book that one in. And you'll walk away with a clear action plan of the key growth areas in your business that you can put into practice. Of course, if you want to gamify that, easy done. Or if you just want to be able to drive that within your business, either way, you're going to have the answers of where to focus in next. So there it is. Thanks, Das.
Beautiful. Thanks, Steve. Looking forward to catching up, team. Love your work.
Talk soon. Cheers.
Cheers.